Hello! Welcome back. Today we are going to play Dagon. Now, I've looked into this a little bit, and it's only supposed to be a couple hours, so nice, short, sweet little intermission between more nonsense. But, from what I've seen, two things. One, this one's a little bit near and dear because Dagon was the first or second Lovecraft story that I ever actually wrote.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Such a decently long time ago that I actually just recently reread it before I ended up jumping in here, and I'm seeing pictures. I'm liking what I'm seeing. It's a short little 3-page ditty, so like I said, I think this is going to be short and sweet. Oh, Dagon is a faithful, interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot. Good, I love it. You know what? I love it so far.
I am writing this under
my
mental strain.
Ears! Oh my ears!
Since by tonight I shall be no more.
Fuck me. Oh man, the sensitivity is a little bit low. Alright, during the game you'll find interacting, some trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes. Ooh, and look for the Elder Sign. Good. I love this. I love the fact that it's the Elder Sign drawn by Lovecraft. I've always had a thing with the other Elder Sign, but that's here nor there. Yes, blah 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 blah. Okay, so we're looking for Elder Signs, looking for a couple other things. Just have a little look-see. Oh. Okay.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
This is literally word for word what is written.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate.
I love this.
When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
I fucking love this. Alright. Take a little bit of a look-see. Oh. Morphine entered into use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, and World War I, 1914 through 1918. It was also sold without restrictions until 1914. Make it sound like I actually know what I'm saying. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1854. Friedrich Serturner, God, I know I butchered that, I apologize, who first isolated the substance, originally named it morphium, after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. That's pretty cool. At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. Love that. I love these little teeny tiny facts. Alright, let's continue.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Do we move around? No moving around. That's fine. Oh, I probably should have looked around for another little clue.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Okay, alright. Oh, the Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and the master of quick raids who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a symbolism for Germans in order to emphasize the brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops on 27th July 1900 before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just 1,000 years ago, the Huns, under their kingdom Atlia, made a name for themselves. One that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed at a German. Whew, a lot to unpack there. The refusal to take prisoners was clear breach of the laws and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899. Oh my. Very cool. Now we go and escape.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Anything? Nope. Oh. I don't know why I zoomed in on fast forward.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings.
No small,
Never a
this game
competent
is
navigator,
gorgeous.
I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Something in the stars. No. Oh. No. We continue.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
And here's where things get interesting.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Oh my, you guys went all out. No little tips and tricks here. Good lord.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished, for there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core.
Jesus, they did really
The
fucking good
region
on
was
this.
putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Ooh, the origins of Dagon. Dagon seems to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by Arvin S. Cobb about unnatural affinities between a hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an isolated lake. Supernatural horror and literature, H.P. Lovecraft. So it was a quote, I see. And Lovecraft's dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling in the ooze that covered its surface. I dream that whole hideous crawl and can yet feel the ooze sucking me down in defiance of Dagon. H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft's interests in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells. In his own words, I have hated fish and feared the sea and everything connected with it since I was 2 years old. But I cannot recall what earlier experience gave me such a profound and lasting aversion to the sea and seafood. The Dweller in Darkness, Lovecraft, 1927, Donald Wandrheim. That's interesting. I didn't quite know that. I knew that he got a lot of his stuff from inspiration from nightmares and dreams. Oh, man. And I find that to be just... fuck that. To sleep and wake up in something along the lines of this horror scope.
As I crawled
Fucking
into the
nuts.
stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
Interesting. Oh, was that a click? Oh, it was. The mystery of volcanic islands. Volcanic eruptions sometimes result in the creation of islands. Most of them are transient and erode after some time, but some prove permanent. The floating pumice, porous rock created when superheated pressured rock is ejected from a volcano, can move across long distances and transport barnacles and microalgae that cling to it. In 2001, rafts of Pumice, created during the eruption of a volcano near Tonga, Polynesia, eventually reached Australia. Getting a lot of facts thrown at us today. The more you know.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
Oh my god, it's actually moving. Fucking love that.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
I'm just looking for another factoid. Okay, alright, maybe we can find it now. I'm gonna say no.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
That's where we're going. Okay.
All day I forged steadily westward,
Jesus.
guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
And we're aiming over there. Anything else? Oh, right, gotta zoom in. Interesting. I figured they would use this for something. We continue. Oh. Oh, Jesus.
That night I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
I'm sorry, I gotta look again. See, look at that, right there. The horrors of the ocean. The creator of Cthulhu mythos and the fictional underwater city of Raylan was convinced that life could not exist at the bottom of the ocean because the water pressure would make it uninhabitable. Today, we know that the darkest depths of the ocean are home to many particular organisms. The deepest dwelling fish we have discovered so far, the Mariana snailfish, can live about 8,000 meters, more than 26,000 feet below the ocean's surface in the never-ending darkness and at hellishly crushing pressures, hundreds of times stronger than those found at sea level. Upon glancing at the modern photos of deep-sea creatures such as anglerfish, the fang-tooth, or the viperfish, and their truly Lovecraftian characteristics, it's hard not to find some irony in this. It's true. I'm fucking loving this.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Oh,
I
you're
know not
sleeping.
why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
That is just
Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again,
amazing scenery.
and in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
I'm excited to see what they have in store for me at the top and at the base. Oh, it's going to be so amazing. But I see you, the lone. Contrary to popular opinion, Lovecraft was not an ever frowning, eccentric, grumpy loner. He considered himself to be a person who appreciated humor. Moreover, he would often meet with friends in his apartment or at various cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. At times, his social life was so intensive his work would suffer for months. There was a point when he finally decided he needed to put an end to daily meetings and loitering in New York cafeterias and resorted to hiding at home and reading with the main room light turned off, pretending he wasn't there whenever a friend knocked on his door. He also had another method of deterring his guests, which involved greeting them in a bathroom with an unmade bed visible in the background and piles of papers scattered across the floor. Now, I had no idea all of the lights off bathrobe, that nonsense. I know that he was a little bit more out and about, but definitely interesting. I knew it was a little bit more of a socialite than what people thought he was. Yeah, but I digress.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to
Let me look
illumine.
down.
I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
See, I didn't believe it was going to be like this. I figured, when he said pit, it would be more. You would be able to tell it was a pit or some sort of canyon. This looks like it's a bit of a drop off, but I'm not gonna complain since that really took the whole darkness and edge of the world bit into account, and I thought that was absolutely fantastic. We'll look for a little ditty. Nope. All right, guess we're walking down.
Outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath.
Made the monolith a lot bigger than I thought they were going to.
Gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Absolutely fantastic. Let's see if we can find. Is that one? Nope. I'm gonna look every time. God, I feel like I missed one already.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Did you know? I'm gonna do the same thing. Yeah, I felt like it wasn't quite as tall,
Now near
but
the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
interesting. They were a little bit differently than I pictured it inside of my head. I figured they were actually like hand carved, but I'm still liking what they're doing. I definitely see it a little bit more vividly here.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like.
I like what they did. You see a little bit of a Cthulhu in the center. Very much on point.
Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world.
Looks like it's mainly Cthulhu.
But whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
This is that weird thing in the middle. I can't really see
It
it.
was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Probably in the center. Oh, easy. Storytelling methods. Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carvings. At the Mounds of Madness, the Nameless City. We've been through a few little backgrounds of the Mounds of Madness, and you've definitely seen that. The journals and characters' notes, The Shadow Out of Time, and The Hunter in the Dark. Basically, what that is, it's like in the beginning of the story, it's like, oh, I'm writing this in warning, or I'm writing this, you just jot it down and forget it all and burn it, or I'm writing this down just to write it down. That kind of thing. Islands emerging from the ocean. The Call of Cthulhu. I haven't read that one again. I believe it, though. Or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies. Me Go and the Whisperers in Darkness. They also had a lot of fictional beings slash deities, mostly deities, based on real events and stuff like that, in the Necronomicon. Put his own little twist on it and things, but still, you can definitely, if you do end up reading that or just seeing it in passing, you do see that there are a lot of deities in there that look and sound and all that nonsense like others. It is also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon. But let's skip the details in order not to spoil the ending. I agree on that. But they are also correct. And I'm sure you can guess one of the three things.
The intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
Deep ones.
Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail.
I never released that game because it broke my computer. Innsmouthians.
For the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Oh, those are definitely interesting.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall.
And this just goes on the fact that deep ones are. This is all part of the Cthulhu tree, where deep ones are. It goes like human kind of experiments. Go to deep ones. The deep ones go into the water. They get big, and I believe the biggest and closest, like a head priest, is basically Dagon. If I'm correct there.
Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale.
Ah, there he is.
Represented as but little larger than himself.
They get big.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
I wonder... Ah, there you are. The Piltdown Man. Lovecraft would often use the latest scientific discoveries as inspiration for his works. He would even update his stories at the last moment in order to make sure they reflected the latest breakthroughs. Unfortunately, this method was not without its flaws. After Lovecraft's death, the Piltdown Man discovery mentioned in Dagon turned out to be a paleanthropical fraud. In 1912, Charles Darwin... Did I say Darwin? An amateur archaeologist announced that he had discovered the missing link between ape and man, the fossilized remains of a previously unknown early human. Years later, they turned out to be a forgery, but by that point the fraud had already managed to negatively affect the early research on human evolution. In the year when the discovery took place, the majority of the scientific community believed that Dawson indeed found the missing link. In 1953, Time magazine published evidence proving that Dawson was a con man. It turned out that the fossils of the previously unknown early human consisted of a human skull, the jaw of an orangutan, and chimpanzee teeth. Well, there you have it.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then,
And here we go.
suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
That's-
Horrendous and loathsome. It darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith.
Not slide out.
Watch it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
Okay.
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
What, no maddening singing and laughing? Missed opportunity there.
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard peals of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital, brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing, nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Here we go. The journalist. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrated on weird fiction again. For the first time since his teenage years, Dagon was published in 1919, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this example expert from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the Conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is, or ever can be, above warfare until the basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed. Man, we are hitting a lot of facts. I'm not saying that is a fact, that is an opinion. I am just saying that a lot of stuff is being thrown at us tonight. A lot more than I thought this game would bring. It's bringing a lot of stuff and throwing it right on the table. Here, read this. It's absolutely true. No, oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! I missed it!
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist
Fucking idiot.
and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Alright, let's see if we can get some Dagon background. There he is. Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. This dude has been everywhere. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones. A humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. It's not really secret. You literally walk into Innsmouth and it's fucking everywhere. It's fucking plastered on the walls. It's not fucking secret. Very cool. He's got a long ass fucking resume. I still can't believe I missed that other fucking one. And I don't know where the fuck to go. Oh. Is that where we're going next? I guess that's where we're going next. This is the end of the story, though.
But soon perceived that he was hopelessly
of course.
conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
If this isn't a thing... Oh, there's two. Hello. August and the Cthulhu Mythos. I'm not a fan of Dareth. Not a fan of him. August Derleth was an American writer and anthrologist. Or anthropologist. I don't know. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he has greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's works after his death, he is also surrounded by numerous controversies. One of the most questionable decisions involved introducing the good and evil doctrine. You see, Derleth was a devoted Catholic, and he introduced it to the Cthulhu Mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to the cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works were often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. That's one of my big things. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Now, good and bad things. As far as I know, a lot of Lovecraft's stuff was unpublished and kind of left unfinished. And Derleth came in and he took those unfinished things and he made them whole. He published a lot of things through Arkham House, and through that, Lovecraft became very popular, and all of these things, we know them now today, and that is a big plus to Derleth. However, my big thing is definitely, along with the rest of these, this big controversy right here, the biggest one right there, is that he did bring in a whole thing of good and evil. The fact that, like, he was pitting gods against another, and I honestly haven't read any of it, and I just don't want to. It's going to hurt my head, and I just don't want to deal with it. I don't. I have listened to some other opinions, and then currently listening to a podcast where he does enjoy Derleth. If you have any want, it's called the Lovecraft Geek. By a Robert M. Price. He goes over a bunch of stuff. I mean, I take his stuff with a bit of a grain of salt. I mean, but you can't just take other people's opinion and you can't just make them fact. Anyways, I digress. The point being, coming back to Derleth, making it very much a good versus evil kind of thing puts me off of it. Making it a very much like a pantheon, where one god with another god, and then there's one god is a child of this one, and this one, I can't say they're all individual deities. I don't know. I have formed my own opinion where one is its own thing and it's its own whole thing, and if one ever came in contact with another, that's a whole thing entirely. Do I think that they're going to go off and do I think that they're going to go off and have a child and bring things together? I mean, on the normal way, like maybe they end up like touching and that touch blob sprouts out a whole entire new creature. Like maybe, sure, whatever. But making a whole entire pantheon and labeling everything is just, it's too much. It's too much. These things are supposed to remain in history, and I can understand, up to a point. But that's why I'm not so much a fan of Derleth, and this also comes into the point with the Elder Sign. As you can see in a lot of the leaves there, that is the Elder Sign drawn up by Lovecraft, and why I kind of keep on saying, like, depending on what you end up reading, it could be like a protection, but it's more like a hidden, like when Frodo, like when using this example, as Frodo kind of bent over and everybody kind of ran over them, it's kind of that kind of protection. And the star, it gives you, it's overpowered. It's very overpowered. Now, not that kind of star, the one with the star with the flames in the center and that kind of stuff. No, the other one that was a little bit more of an actual protection is right here. That one. That one is offers more protection than the leaf, but of course this is all from the books. I went on a bit of a rant there, but I'm not a fan. I'm just not. I guess some people would put me in more of the purist category than anything else, but I just can't. I can't fathom why he would do that. I mean, I can understand, but it just doesn't compute. Anyways, let's just finish this off. We're literally like a couple sentences away from the end. Let's grab this, though. The Marketeer. The Marketer. The Marketer. Lovecraft's attempts to find a job in 1925 were influenced by advice he received from friends. Among others, he started freelancing for a marketing magazine where he would write announcements and commercials. Feel free to judge his copywriting skills for yourself. From an ad for Curtis Woodwork. Curtis Woodwork embraces both the usual structural units and the cleverest controversies of built-in or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, and cupboards. Every model is conceived and created with the purest arts, ripest scholarship, and mellowest craftsmanship which energetic enterprise can command, and made to conform rigidly to the architecture of each particular type of home. The cost, considering the quality, is amazingly low, and a trademark on the individual pieces prevents any substitutional by careless contractors. Source: Lovecraft Studios, Volume 7, Number 1, H.P. Lovecraft, S.T. Joshi. S.T. Joshi. Now, I've heard a lot about him. He is the one that did a huge amount of research into a lot of H.P.'s life. And if you're ever to look into any kind of biology, look into his biology. Look into his bones, or the dirt where his bones were. Biography. If you were to look into any sort of biography, this man right here, S.T. Joshi, I've heard nothing but amazing things about his accuracy on stuff over H.P. Lovecraft. I'm not so much one to look into H.P. life. I just like the writings more than the person. But if I were to read up on H.P. himself, I would read what S.T. Joshi put out. Just saying. Alright. Now that we've gone over all of that nonsense, I'm going to look through the room one more time. I don't think there's anything freaking else. Oh, what the heck? Oh, what the heck? Okay, they can only look around one way. Cool. I don't know how I got back that way then. Alright, let's finish this bad boy up. Interesting. You thought you got away from me. The scientists. These days, the word scientist is a widely accepted term, but at the time Dagon was published, it was subject to a wide debate. After the author used it in the story, critics pointed out that the man of science was a more appropriate term to employ. He was admitted in the Defiance of Dagon that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he would indeed use the phrase they suggested. Scientist was coined as an analog to artist, to be used when referring to those studying different branches of science. Yet, in the 19th century and early 20th century, scientific research in Great Britain and the United States were of the opinion that man of science, resembling the term man of letters, was the only proper choice. Among other things, it was gender specific, indicating that science was an endeavor to be pursued by only one sex, which is complete fucking stupidity. The term scientist became more accepted only after World War II, and man of science started fading into obscurity as an old-fashioned synonym into the ground where it belongs. Sounds cool, don't get me wrong, but oh my god, fucking sexist. Unbelievable. Alright, where are we at? I found the secret before I found the fucking Alright, there we go. Now I'm gonna triple check. Triple check. Alright. Oh my. And we're
It is
back.
at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning,
Before
that I
we-
see the thing.
Mm.
I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
And this is what I was kind of saying before, how, like, oh, this is one of the ways that Lovecraft likes to end his things. It is true. He sees a lot of nonsense. He writes in his journal, I'm writing this, and in the end, I'm finishing this off, and... Let's see, but actually, Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. It's fair. But before we get onto that point, but yeah, as I was saying before, he ends a lot of his stuff where hospitalization, where just kind of like, oh, you've been hallucinating this entire time, or, you know, you haven't been, and everybody thinks you're fucking crazy, and then you go live alone, and you kind of, you see all the things that you know, they're imprinted in your head, and it's a bunch of nonsense, and nonsense in your head. But seeing something like that wouldn't be a bunch of nonsense. You'd be stuck inside and printed in your head, and you just go really crazy on your own, kind of thing. Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with a friend, Orion Hart Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia Brown, dated 13th February 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural expose of the involved human intellect and imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition. The prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as of any other. Source: Spirit of Reversion, Lovecraft Letters, Jocelyn Brown, Reed, Bishop, H.P. Lovecraft, Sheen Ronnie, S.T. Joshi. Alright, and finally, the end.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat, after my escape from the German man-of-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite.
That's super dope.
I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows
Oh, it's still
to
going.
drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Oh, Innsmouth. Very cool. I think that's probably it. Yeah.
The end is near.
door? Where's the window?
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Pretty sure I go towards the window, but you know.
It shall not find me.
Because it's doing that.
God, that hand! The window! The window!
Absolutely fantastic. That was great. Like I said, the narrative followed the short story word for word. So now, if you haven't read it before, you have now read Dagon. Little pics and little info drops here and there were absolutely great. There's a couple of them that you know, I couldn't tell you which way, but if you want to look up some of the stuff for yourself, like I said, a lot of stuff by Joshi would probably do you for the best. This was an extremely interesting tale, and honestly, really close to what I envisioned this to be when I was reading the book as well. So I hope you had a nice little story. Nice little bedtime story for you to go and have, you know, some nice little nightmares on and wake up in the middle of a black ichor moss covered lake of some kind. Some nice little muck in some sort of marsh and all that kind of stuff. That'd be really terrifying to wake up into. Anyways, as always, thank you so much for joining me on this nice little one shot, nice quick clean one video one shot. Thank you as always for joining me under the yellow sign, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.